The room was filled with a quiet kind of anticipation, the kind that hums beneath the surface, subtle yet powerful enough to make every heartbeat feel louder. It wasn't a concert stage, nor was it a grand public event flooded with cameras and flashing lights. Instead, it was something far more intimate, more sacred. A moment that seemed to exist outside of time, reserved only for those present, and perhaps for those destined to hear its story later. Jimin stood there, unaware that his world was about to shift in the most profound way imaginable. For years, fans had watched him grow, from a young trainee with fierce determination to one of the most captivating performers in the world. His journey had always been marked by passion, vulnerability, and a quiet strength that shone brightest in the most unexpected moments. Yet, despite all the stages he had conquered, nothing could have prepared him for what was about to unfold. Across the room stood Jungkook. There was something different about him that day. It wasn't just the way he carried himself, though there was a noticeable steadiness in his posture, a calmness that contrasted with the usual playful energy fans had come to adore. It was deeper than that. It was in his eyes. Eyes that held a story. Eyes that had watched Jimin for years, through laughter, through exhaustion, through triumph and doubt. Eyes that had seen every version of him and had chosen again and again to stay. And tonight, those eyes were filled with something unmistakable. Certainty. The soft murmur of voices faded as Jungkook took a step forward. It wasn't a dramatic movement, but it was enough to draw attention. Jimin turned, slightly confused at first, his expression softening into curiosity. "What's going on?" he seemed to ask silently, a small smile forming as he looked at Jungkook. No one answered. Because everyone already knew. Everyone except him. There's a unique kind of tension that comes before life-changing moments. It doesn't feel like fear, nor does it resemble excitement in its usual form. It's quieter, heavier, like the air itself is holding its breath. Jungkook took another step closer, then another. Each movement deliberate, as though he had replayed this exact path in his mind countless times. As though every step carried the weight of years, years of unspoken words, of shared glances, of moments that lingered just a little too long to be called coincidence. By the time he stood in front of Jimin, the room had fallen completely silent. And then, something happened that no one present would ever forget. Jungkook reached for Jimin's hand. For a brief second, Jimin froze. Not out of discomfort, but surprise. His eyes widened slightly, searching Jungkook's face for answers. And what he found there made his breath catch. There was no hesitation, no doubt, only sincerity. And something else. Something that looked a lot like love. Jimin. His name was spoken softly, yet it echoed louder than anything else in that room. It wasn't just a call for attention. It was a confession. Time seemed to slow, every second stretching into something almost infinite. Jimin's smile faded, not into sadness, but into something deeper, something more vulnerable. As though, in that moment, he understood that whatever was about to be said would change everything. And yet, he didn't pull away. He didn't look away. He stayed. Jungkook inhaled, steadying himself. For someone who had performed in front of millions, who had stood on the world's biggest stages without fear, this moment was different. Because this wasn't about perfection. It was about truth. I don't think I've ever said this the way I should have. His voice was calm, but there was a tremor beneath it, a quiet vulnerability that made every word feel raw and real. But you've always been my person. A ripple moved through the room, subtle, almost imperceptible, but powerful. Jimin's eyes softened, emotions flickering across his face in waves. Surprise, understanding, and then something that looked dangerously close to tears. You've been there for me in ways I didn't even realize I needed, Jungkook continued. Through everything. The good, the bad, even the moments I didn't know how to face. He paused, his grip tightening ever so slightly. And somehow, you always knew. There are moments in life where words feel insufficient, where emotions become too vast, too complex to be contained in language alone. This was one of those moments. Jimin blinked, a tear slipping free before he could stop it. He didn't wipe it away, because he understood. Across the room, someone else began to cry. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, deeply. Jimin's mother. She had been watching from the very beginning, watching her son grow, struggle, succeed, watching him give so much of himself to the world. And now, she was witnessing something entirely different, something deeply personal, something that no stage performance could ever replicate. Her hand covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face, not of sadness, but of overwhelming emotion. Back at the center of it all, Jungkook reached into his pocket. The movement was small, but it carried a weight that was impossible to ignore. Jimin's breath caught, because deep down, he already knew. When Jungkook dropped to one knee, the world seemed to stop. There are moments that define a lifetime, moments that become stories told over and over again, not because they need to be remembered, but because they deserve to be felt again. This was one of those moments. Jungkook looked up at him, not as a global star, not as a performer, but simply as himself, vulnerable, hopeful, real. "I don't have all the perfect words," he admitted softly, "but I know this." He opened the small box in his hand. "I want to spend every moment I can with you." Jimin's hands trembled, not from fear, but from the overwhelming weight of the moment. "Will you stay with me for everything that comes next?" Silence. But it wasn't empty. It was full of emotion, of history, of everything that had led to this exact second. Jimin didn't answer immediately. Not because he didn't know what to say, but because he felt it too deeply. Tears fell freely now, his smile breaking through them in a way that made the entire room feel like it was witnessing something sacred. And then, he nodded. A simple gesture, but one that carried everything. "Yes." The word barely left his lips before Jungkook stood, pulling him into an embrace that felt less like a moment and more like a promise. Around them, emotions overflowed. Soft cries, smiles through tears, hands covering mouths in disbelief. And in the corner of the room, Jimin's mother continued to cry. But this time, she was smiling, because in that moment, she wasn't just witnessing a proposal, she was witnessing love. Real, undeniable love. The kind that grows quietly over time. The kind that doesn't need to be announced, but when it is, it shakes the world. For years, people had speculated, wondered, hoped, but no one could have truly prepared for how powerful this moment would feel when it finally came. Because it wasn't about confirmation. It wasn't about expectations. It was about two people choosing each other, openly, honestly, without fear. And as they stood there, holding on to each other like nothing else mattered, it became clear. This wasn't the end of a story. It was the beginning of a new one. A story not defined by stages or spotlight, but by quiet mornings, shared laughter, unspoken understanding. A story that would continue long after the moment had passed. And somewhere, in the hearts of those who witnessed it, whether in that room or beyond, it would live on. Because some moments aren't just seen, they're felt, forever.